Hello and welcome to the Fit for Life programme. This is a programme of videos to help you look after your mind, body and spirit. If you haven't already watched the first video in this series, the introduction and goal setting, I suggest you do so before you continue. Today we have a session from Sarah Guyan, who's our complementary therapy lead, and she's going to be talking to us about sleep and how we can make the most of it. Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, and welcome to the Sleep for Life session on sleep. So we're going to explore how well you sleep and what you may be able to do about that. There's some little techniques that we want to share with you. The way that this presentation has been set out, you can actually stop at any point and make some notes yourself. We do pose a few questions to ask you to think about what your sleep patterns are like, what you do already, what's good, what's not so good. And we're going to share a few bits of information with you that you may find beneficial. So, what stops you from sleeping? So we've asked this question before several times, and some of the top things that we hear are insomnia, and this varies from person to person. People falling asleep easily, but then waking again in a few hours and not being able to get back to sleep. People who can't sleep straight away and sit there, their minds are racing, thinking about things before they eventually go to sleep. And then people who wake periodically through the night. And sometimes it's easy to get back to sleep, otherwise sometimes it takes a little bit of time for people to get back to sleep, but this kind of continual broken sleep. Another thing we hear a lot about is about people feeling stressed or anxious or worrying, that they've got thoughts continually going around in their mind. Some of these might be worrying thoughts, things like about their illness, about their family and friends. And sometimes what we hear is people saying, you know, they're just thoughts. It's just absolutely anything that's gone on in their day. They just get on this spiral, and it's like the thoughts are this merry-go-round that just keeps going round and round and round, and it's really difficult to get. Another thing we hear about is pain, that people either struggle to go to sleep because they are in pain, or they wake because the pain has kicked in. So we're not really going to go into things like medication on this. You know, that's something that you'd need to be discussing with your healthcare professionals. However, we are going to look at things like sleeping position and how you can make yourself more comfortable to help alleviate pain. And another thing we hear about is breathing problems. And a lot of this is about the anxiety around not being able to breathe. And I know that many people with breathing problems have attended things like breathless management service, and those techniques are absolutely valuable for you to implement and use when these problems occur. But again, for this little presentation, we're going to think about positioning and what's really good for your position. So areas that we're really going to focus on is your environment, your diet. We're going to look at developing a nighttime routine and your thoughts. So just looking at these two pictures, I wonder what your thoughts are on which room you would like to sleep in and which you feel would be instrumental in you having a good night's sleep, and why would that be? So maybe just take a moment to have a look at these two pictures and think what would be the most conducive to a good night's sleep and why. And so thinking about creating a good sleeping environment, what does that look like? So thinking back to these two pictures, we're going to kind of break this down a little bit. So the idea of creating a sleeping environment is that the area that you sleep in is created purely as a space for sleep. So wherever possible, to keep electronic equipment out of the bedroom, to avoid watching or TV or using computers, electronic equipment before going to sleep, and trying to keep them out of your room, trying to keep your things like your mobile phones charged in a different area of the house. Understandably, this isn't always possible. And so if you do have electronic equipment in your sleep vicinity, it's always good to try and cover them up before you go to sleep, to turn them off at the mains. Not only is that good for your sleep, it's also good for your electricity bill. So rather than leaving them on standby, make sure that, or try to make sure that you can turn those off and get them covered to stop that kind of electric influence in your sleep. You know, when you think about sound waves and how sound wave travels, actually technology has that ability to kind of impact on your sleep, and this is why they say to try and keep this electronic equipment out of your bedroom. So another thing is to try and have your bedroom temperature at a cooler temperature than the rest of your house. So if you're too hot, struggle to sleep. We know that in summertime, when it gets really warm, I think many of us struggle with sleep. And if it's too cold, then again, that's not conducive to night's sleep. I have to get a kind of cooler temperature, but not too cold, not too hot. And creating a quiet space. So to be able to cut out as much noise as possible from your room. Some people don't mind noise. Other people really, really struggle with that, and the slightest noise will wake them up. If you're one of those people, it might be worth considering using something like earplugs to really help eliminate or muffle the sounds. Sleeping in a dark room. If the room is dark, then it's more conducive to sleep. In that blackout space, it's telling the mind it's time to stop, time to shut down. So turning the lights off when you go to bed, and using either blackout blinds or really thick curtains to block outside lights, street lights coming through the windows. You do need a light on. It's really good to get one of the low setting lights, ones that don't wake you up properly. So there's either use a really, really low wattage, or there are some lamps that you can buy that are like sunset lamps. And so what that does is, again, it tells your mind that it's relax and not wake up. So ensure you're comfortable. So having a comfortable mattress and finding pillows that support you. So one of the things that we've noticed as therapists in the treatment rooms is that we spend quite a bit of time getting people into a very comfortable position on the treatment couch before we deliver the session. And what I mean by this is, if people are in pain, so let's think for a moment about lower back pain, pain down in the sacrum area, pain into the lower lumbar spine. When people are laid flat, that's often adding pressure onto those areas. So what we would do is get either some rolled up towels to put under the knees, or the type of cushions that are a roll, and put those under the knees. We then maybe put some pillows under the lower legs, so that there's actually a slight rise in the lower legs. And what that helps to do is take the pressure off the lower back and the pain in the lower back. If people have shoulder pain and their shoulders don't naturally feel supported when they're on a cushion, we get smaller pillows, or again towels, and we roll them up to support the shoulders so that the shoulders feel supported. So like anywhere in the body where there's a sense of pain, we find a way to support that area so that in that support it can begin to relax. If you think of just hanging your arm down and it's in pain, that sense of it just hanging in being suspended in thin air can really pull on your muscles and aggravate that pain. Whereas if you then move your arm into an area where it's supported, like if you put it in a sling or you rested it on a pillow, that support then takes that pressure out of the arm to allow it to begin to rest and relax. So we're doing the same kind of thing when people are laying down. We're finding areas of pain, and then we're using things like towels and pillows to support those areas to get them into comfortable. And what we often hear from people is, oh, I could just fall asleep. This is so comfortable. And my question is always, do you do this at home? Do you arrange your pillows like this at home? And the answer is more often than not, no, I don't. And we suggest with people, why don't you try this for your sleeping position? And people who, feel pain because they sleep on their side and actually sleeping on their back is really difficult, but they're less in pain. If they find that if they support themselves in this way, that actually they're more able to sleep on their back for longer periods of time in the night. So if you do have pain, I think it's really worthwhile before you go to bed using pillows, using cushions to support you and playing with this to see whether that might help. Regarding breathing difficulties, again, sleeping position is really, really important for people. So again, using different types of pillows, different types of support. There's the triangle pillows that you can buy and use. They have the little back support boards that you can slide into your bed and put pillows against. Really, really effective that you could try and use. So I think specifically for those two things, really playing around with comfortable positions is invaluable to trying to get a good night's sleep. So we're going to have a little look at your diet. Not necessarily what you eat, but things that might affect your sleep. So just things like being mindful about your alcohol consumption. We're not saying don't have a drink, but actually alcohol is a stimulant. So it initially may make you feel like, oh, it makes me want to go to sleep, but then sometimes it might wake you up in the night and then you're wide awake. So thinking about maybe if you do have a drink, maybe having it a few hours before you go to sleep to allow that kind of period of stimulation to wear off. And then thinking about other stimulants such as caffeine and sugar. So the recommended is to have your last cup of coffee between about 2 and 4 p.m, especially if you're a person that knows that you're sensitive. From early evening, try to avoid other stimulants, things like tea, as tea contains caffeine. And if you do like a cup of tea, maybe think about swapping your usual brew for like a herbal tea. Now, something like chamomile is well known for the relaxing effect. So if you don't mind a herbal tea, it might be good to think about swapping your normal tea for a herbal brew instead. Another stimulant that I think is worth mentioning, and I know that this isn't a food, but it kind of goes with food. Often if we have something to eat, we like to have a cigarette afterwards. And again, cigarettes are stimulants. So think about having your last cigarette about 4 hours before bedtime. And I know that that can be really, really difficult. But it's worth just thinking about, and don't go to bed on a full belly. So there's a few reasons for this. Your food won't properly digested. We know that sometimes laying down after food can cause indigestion. It could be a cause of heartburn. So give yourself a few hours before going to bed to allow the meal to digest properly. Some people advise finishing your evening meal before 7 p.m. to really allow that digestion to kick in and come to full flotation before you go to bed. And on the flip side of this, don't go to bed hungry, because we know that actually being hungry in bed can prevent you from sleeping. So what they say is, if you're hungry, have a light snack. And there's some really good little night snacks around that people suggest. And the reason they suggest this is because of the mineral and vitamin contents that some of these foods have, and essential amino acids. And so things like light hot milk, herbal teas, nuts, cereals, hot cereal, something warm in your belly. It's really comforting. I was surprised by this, but small portions of cheese and biscuits, they say, are really, really good. And banana and peanut butter are all excellent bedtime snacks. So it's something light, but something that will allow you to take away that feeling of hunger. Now, some of these foods contain magnesium. And it's just interesting to know that there's been several studies that have looked at the effects of magnesium deficiency in food. Most of them, as always, say that we need further investigations, but several have supported the possibility that increasing magnesium intake may help to improve the quality of sleep for some people. So knowing that, it's always good to know that foods rich in magnesium are worth considering to add into your diet. And so we've got a list of some, what they say, the top 10 rich magnesium foods. So spinach, pumpkin seeds, lima beans, tuna, brown rice, almonds, dark chocolate, avocados, low-fat yogurt, and bananas. You can see in there, there's a few foods that are recommended as a good bedtime snack. I love the fact that dark chocolate's in there. So, have a cocoa, have a bit of dark chocolate, treat yourself. So, the next bit we're going to look at is thoughts and worries about not getting to sleep. So we know that worry can increase tension in the body. And actually, when the body feels tense and uncomfortable, it can make it less easy to fall asleep. So what do we do about these thoughts and worries? And we're just going to look at a couple. So what we hear a lot is, I don't get enough sleep. And I think many of us can relate to that. Myself, there's nights I don't get enough sleep. And I know that when I don't get enough sleep, I have the thoughts of what I'm going to feel like the next day. So I think it's always interesting to hear that not everybody gets enough sleep. I think we think that everybody else is sleeping really well, and actually many of us struggle with sleep. It's also interesting to know that sleep needs vary from between 4 to 10 hours a night. So this idea that we all need 8 hours sleep to function the next day isn't actually accurate. Some people need, less than that and function really, really well, and they can do that night after night after night. And some people actually need more than that. They need 10 hours sleep. And you'll know where you are, but this idea of this standard 8 hours isn't actually accurate for all of us. And it's also interesting to know that different factors affect the amount of sleep that we need. So things like age, that affects us. What's going on with our health will affect us. The amount of exercise we've had will affect us. There's loads of different variants that will affect what's going on with our sleep patterns. It's good to mention here that if you do exercise, then exercise does help promote a good night's sleep. But don't exercise just before you go to bed. Again, ideally a few hours before you go to bed. And it's also interesting to note that during the summer months, we need less sleep than we do in winter. And this is not everybody, but for most of us, we're following the natural rhythms of the season. And when it's warmer and it's brighter, we tend to wake up earlier and go to bed later. We kind of follow that natural seasonal pattern. And in the winter, we become a bit more like the animals that want to hibernate. You know, it's darker earlier and it gets lighter later, and therefore our natural body clock is wanting to follow that. It's not light, so actually we're not naturally wanting to get up earlier. So just to be aware that actually during the seasonal changes, our sleep patterns do tend to change slightly with the seasons. And so those thoughts, you know, that when you're tired because you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to function during the day. I know that's certainly something that I consider when I'm laid awake in bed. But actually, when I ask myself, after every bad night's sleep, am I able to function the next day? I tend to find that most of the time I am able to function the next day. So it's a good question to ask yourself. When you don't sleep well that night, are you able to function well the next day? Do you have days that actually, irrespective of your sleep, you're still able to function? And another thing just to become aware of is if you focus on how tired you are, does that make you feel more tired? Does that bring your mood down? Does it help lose your concentration? There is this thought process that actually, when you're focusing on how tired you feel, that impacts on your ability to concentrate. It might lower your mood, rather than focusing on, I can get through the day. So it's just about bringing an awareness to these things about how you feel, and kind of looking at your thought processes and going, actually, is that accurate? I think I'm going to feel like that. Do I feel like that? So it's worth just bringing an awareness to these thoughts. So what we do know is that there is a connection between quieting the mind and falling asleep. And we're going to just look at a few things that can help support that quieting of the mind. So thinking about your breath and breathwork techniques. Breathwork techniques are involved in a lot of techniques that we're going to have a little chat about. The breath, is something that is with us from the first moment of our lives to the last moment of our lives. We're very reliant on our breath. It's a tool that we have that is there all the time. We don't have to go out and buy any fancy equipment for it. It's just part of us and it's with us. And what we know about the breath, and specifically about calming breath techniques, is that they trigger a parasympathetic response. And that trigger can help reduce the sense of anxiety and stress that we feel within our bodies. The breathwork techniques are a really important tool that we have at our disposal. What I would say about breathwork techniques is, if you are somebody who suffers with breathlessness, sometimes focusing on the breath might not be the best technique to use. So that's something to consider when we go through some of these techniques. So another thing is just general relaxation techniques. So learning how to relax the mind and the body can help reduce the mind chatter and the anxiety and the body tension that we feel. And so relaxation techniques include things like breathwork techniques, but they might include something like a visual relaxation session. So rather than focusing on something like the breath, you might be doing a guided visualization where you go for a walk along the beach or up a mountain or somewhere that you find relaxing. Or it might be just working your way around the body in a kind of progressive relaxation, going to each area and letting those muscles go and relaxing each area in turn. So this is using your breath, and your breath will naturally relax during these techniques, but not focusing necessarily on the breath. So this is something worth thinking about, and this is about changing our approach to sleep. So if you're laid in bed and you are tossing and turning because you can't sleep and the mind is going thinking about, oh, I'm going to feel really tired tomorrow if I don't get enough sleep, and the thoughts are going, worth thinking and remembering that actually doing some sort of breath work or relaxation technique is the second choice for sleep. It's not as good as sleep. Nothing is as good as sleep, but actually it's a good second best. It's a good second choice. So thinking about when you're laying in bed and you are struggling with sleep and your thought process goes to that struggle, if you bring an awareness to that and you're able to change that and go, okay, what I'm going to do is a relaxation technique now. What you might find is by implementing that relaxation technique and thinking, if I can't sleep, I'll just relax. And actually, that's got benefits for my body, that you might find that the outcome may be that you end up falling asleep. And if not, you take your brain out of stress response into a relaxation response, which is really good for the body. So you're moving your mind and your body response into this parasympathetic, reducing that stress, reducing that anxiety, and coming into a place of relaxation. And then another good thing about getting the thoughts out of your mind is journaling. Journaling before you go to bed. What this can do, it can help clear your mind and get the thoughts out. So I mentioned earlier about people saying that they get on this spiral of these thoughts, and sometimes when you're on that thought spiral, the mind is going really, really fast. And it's like a merry-go-round going round and round and round, and it's really, really difficult to stop. Actually, by writing the thoughts down, what you begin to do is slow those thought processes down. So journaling is actually not going and typing it onto a computer. It's actually the act of writing. So get yourself a journal or a little notebook and write, because what that does is that helps slow the mind down. What else it does is it helps get those thoughts out of the mind onto a piece of paper and put that focus somewhere else. We're going to have a little look about journaling and how to do it. So techniques to calm the mind and promote relaxation. Many techniques can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, cause a relaxation response. And we're just going to look at a few, and not in a lot of detail, just cover them. So progressive muscle relaxation, I mentioned earlier, it's about going around each area of the body and relaxing each muscle. And this can be done passively with the breath, or it can be done by tensing that area and then letting the muscles go. Meditation. We've all heard about meditation, and there's lots of research out there that talk about the benefits of meditation and how this practice can influence our health for the better. Meditation is a practice, and it can be a breath practice, or it could be what they call a mantra practice. So you repeat a phrase to yourself to give your mind something to focus on. What I often hear from people is, I can't meditate, my mind wanders. And that is absolutely normal. That's what the mind is designed to do. The mind is designed to wander, it's designed to create, it's designed to be intuitive. So what you're doing, your brain is like a muscle, you're training your brain. And that's what meditation practice is that you are training your brain that actually this is the time to be quiet. And this is a time to relax. And it's really just about bringing an awareness. And the awareness is every time the mind wanders, the practice is, my mind has wandered, thank you very much, and bringing it back to the breath or back to the mantra, whatever it is that you use as your focus of the meditation. And your mind will keep doing that. And the practice is having the awareness to go, oh yeah, I'm wondering, no problem. And bringing it back to your focus. And just being really kind with yourself and knowing that that's absolutely normal. That is what every mind does. That's the practice of meditation. Body scan. So a body scan is bringing your awareness into your body and moving your awareness to each part of your body in turn. And this is really good for kind of bringing the mind back into the body and making that mind-body connection again. It's also quite a relaxing exercise. People do this a lot and find it really, really beneficial. So it's a form of meditation, it's a form of awareness, but it's bringing your mind back into your body and kind of working through the body, connecting to each part of your body. Breathing techniques, there's so many breathing techniques. There's a lot of yogic breath work, and just really using the breath to calm the mind and relax the body. From anything as simple as taking 10 long deep breaths to calm yourself, to actually having a breathwork practice of which is a yogic exercise of inhaling for a count, holding for a count, and then releasing for a count, to again link into that parasympathetic nervous system. Lots of techniques out there. And it's about finding something that's comfortable for you. Creative visualization is a relaxation technique that involves a visualization aspect to it. So you can find creative visualization. This is really good if you want to go off somewhere, maybe to a beach or maybe to a mountain, or create your own kind of sacred garden that or space that you love being in and you enjoy, that you're able to take yourself there to help the mind and body relax. My place is in a beautiful hot place anywhere in the world. I don't particularly know where it is. Turquoise seas, in a boat that's bouncing on the water, and I can hear the waves lapping up against the seashore. But, you know, just having that vision of somewhere that's really beautiful for you to go to help reduce stress, anxiety, and tension. Listening to relaxing music is a really good thing. So if you're going to listen to relaxing music, you want to listen to something that helps you switch off and doesn't stimulate your mind in any way. So if there's a music that kind of you want to get up and dance to, or it stimulates you in some way, avoid that. Find something that you can just lay back and relax and switch off to. Music is very powerful. Music triggers us in so many different ways. So the trigger for the music that you're looking for is about relaxation, turning off in this specific arena. Qigong is a good thing to practice. So Qigong is like Tai Chi, but much simpler. There's some great little videos online for kind of sleep Qigong. We have a video on St. Christopher's website under the complementary therapist team, which is run by one of our therapists, Sally. So this is really good to do on a daily basis. It's a little bit of gentle exercise, but it's also really good for relaxing the body. Simple yoga techniques. So if you do yoga, maybe speaking to your yoga teacher and getting some very simple yoga techniques to do in the night time that might help, or speak to your yoga teacher about some simple breathing techniques, some yogic breathing. If you're somebody who follows a religion, then something like a repetitive prayer to help relax you, or if you're do spiritual practice, maybe something like positive affirmations, something that helps kind of open your mind, open your heart, connect you and help you to really, really good techniques. And then things like self-compassion or loving kindness, if you practice something like that. So rather than going into the stress place, you know, the worry place, to bring that loving kindness, that self-compassion to yourself, is a really good technique. And then, of course, the gratitude practice, if you do things like this, just connecting to things that you're grateful for. Might be your family, might be your pet, your children, and just connecting to that place of gratitude inside yourself. These are all really good techniques that open up the parasympathetic nervous system. What I'd say about things like the meditation, the body scan, breathing techniques, the visualization, any relaxation technique, music, even things like practicing self-compassion or gratitude practice. These things you can all find online, or get some apps like Headspace put onto your phone or your computer. There are some great tools out there that you can link into. So we're just going to have a little look about a worry journal. So studies have shown emotional release can come from keeping a journal, and that writing your thoughts down tend to slow them down and helps lower anxiety and stress. So using a worry journal, before you go to bed, you'd write down any worries or concerns that you're thinking about at that time. Get them out of your head and get them onto a piece of paper, or into your journal. And this can include any of the to-do lists. So it might be a shopping list or a list of things that you know you want to do tomorrow. Get them out so that you don't start to think about them during the night. You know that they're in your journal and you can go back to them. If there's something that is really troubling you, it might be good to brainstorm ways that you may be able to address that situation. If there's something that's really, really on your mind and it's a big focus, you're really, really worried about it, the reality is it's bedtime. There's nothing that you can do right now in the here and now, but there might be something that you think you might be able to do tomorrow, the next day, the next week, the next few months. And actually, by writing that down, it helps get it out of your mind, and that repetitive kind of thinking about it during the night before you go to bed. If there's a few choices to this brainstorming that you've done, choose whichever feels the most helpful for you and write down the steps to achieve it. So it's almost like putting a plan together. Okay, this is what's worrying me. I could do A, B, and C. Actually, B feels the thing that I can work at most and would give me the better outcome. And how would I achieve that? I'm writing down steps A, B, C. So it's about just getting those thoughts out of your head before you go to bed. If you've made a list and you think, actually, I need to do that tomorrow, that's really important, I need to worry about that tomorrow, you can underline or circle them, highlighting that these are really important things and you want to come back to them. And then in that way, what it does is it stops your brain reminding you in the morning, during your sleep. It's, you know, it's like, actually written down, I know what I've got to do tomorrow, I'm going to come back to that. After doing this exercise, it might leave a little bit of anxious chatter going on. Speak kindly to yourself, knowing that what you've done is preparing you for tomorrow, that there's nothing more that you can do, and you've done a really, really good job. This is really positive. You know, I've got it out of my head, got it on the piece of paper. Actually, this is my sleep time now. And worry, I hear you, but actually I'm going to come back to you tomorrow. It's all here. I won't forget any of it. I honour that, and I'm going to come back. You know, I've done a really good thing. Give yourself those kind of positive thoughts. Those that show yourself that kindness. You know, well done. You've done something really, really good. You've got this out. It's there. I'm not forgetting about you. I'm coming back to you. The mind doesn't like to be forgotten about. You know, so let yourself know that it's here. I'm coming back to you. I've done something really good. You know, we've worked together really well on this. And then spend some time relaxing. And you may want to use some of the techniques mentioned on the previous slide, but just bring yourself out of away from the worry into it's time to look after me now. This is my time to go to sleep, to feel relaxed, and to do something positive for me. And so spend a little time doing something relaxing. And then go to bed. And so we're going to just take a little look about what your nighttime routine looks like right now. You know, you may want to pause this and just think about what you do before you go to bed. I'm just thinking for a moment about what your routine looks like. So repeating the same routine each evening can be beneficial to your sleep pattern. And there are a few reasons for this. It can help calm overactive thoughts that keep you awake. It can help you plan for the following day and stop you thinking about it in bed. By repeating a regular pattern, you begin to train your body and mind to relax before going to bed. So just like we train muscles to become fitter, to become stronger, we can train our body, we can train our mind to relax before bedtime. It's a bit like going back to school and learning again. And it's also good to bring an awareness to the positive effects bedtime routine can have, because knowing those things can then help us make the choices to avoid things that overstimulate us before we go to. So thinking about the hours leading up to sleep, how do you spend your time? And is there anything specific you do every evening which you think might be helpful or might be unhelpful for your sleep? And thinking about what you do 1 hour before going to bed. What currently is your usual routine? And again, you might like to just pause this for a moment and just think about these questions. So when creating your nighttime routine, it's good to consider that every person is different and there is not one routine that is right for everyone. When we think back to the beginning of this little presentation, you know, about how actually something as simple as how many hours sleep we all need a night is very varied and very different. We think about the music we enjoy, what one person likes, somebody else might not like. So it's really about exploring what would be right for you. So, but some things to consider are getting out of bed at the same time each morning and going to bed at the same time. It's just about training your body that this is the time that I sleep. So avoid doing anything mentally demanding within an hour of going to bed. This ideally is the time when we switch off from social media, we switch off from the TV, we switch off from the computers, all of that kind of stimulating activity we try to stop before going to bed. Listen to music that calms the mind and avoid music that stimulates you. This might be a good time to take a bath, listen to some music, give your pet or partner some time and attention, Or maybe read a book if you find reading a book relaxing. Now, some people can get into bed and snuggle down with a book and fall asleep quite easily. Some people find that actually that doesn't happen and they just want to keep reading. If you're a person that it doesn't help you fall to sleep when you're in bed reading, then it might be worth thinking about reading a book in another room. And then when you're ready, putting the book down and going into your bedroom. Plan for tomorrow, write down any tasks you need to do the following day. So this might be your worry journal, or your task journal, your list journal, whatever it is, but beginning to get those thoughts out of the mind and onto paper, away from your sleep routine so they don't begin to wake you during the night. This is a time to begin to practice your relaxing routine. So if you do any of the things that we mentioned earlier, meditation, the body scan, the visualization, that this is your time to maybe start doing that. Yogic breathing, any little yoga exercises, whatever that may be, or you might have something that you do already, then, and you know that that helps to relax you, then great, keep going with that. If you have any worries, write them down in a worry journal. I think I mentioned that in the tasks. So those are a few things to consider to start implementing into your nighttime routine. And just things to consider. So life circumstances may impact on planned routines. So it is important that nighttime routines don't become another worry or stress to you. What we're trying to do is avoid the stress. If for any reason your nighttime routine doesn't happen, and please be kind to yourself. It's absolutely okay. We're all human. Other things come in and take our time. That's normal. Please do not make a nighttime routine another stress for yourself. Good to consider that if you have not fallen asleep within 20 to 30 minutes, to maybe get up, keep your lights very dim. You don't want bright lights to really wake you up. And maybe repeat some of your nighttime routine until you feel ready to go to bed. If you're worrying, maybe add something else to your journal. If your mind's just going and actually reading helps you relax, maybe do a little bit of reading. Maybe go in and do a relaxation technique, progressive relaxation. But try to avoid doing things like going downstairs and making yourself tea because it's a stimulant, going and having a cigarette, that's a stimulant, going on social media, checking your phone, Facebook, anything like that, because they're all stimulating. If you wake during the night, try avoid looking at the clock to see what time it is and avoid turning the lights on. If you know that you look at clocks, it may be good to have them turned over or covered if you need a clock in the room. Clock watching can really impact on your sleep and add to that kind of stress and anxiety. Oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock, I'm only going to have 2 hours sleep now if I actually do fall asleep. So try to avoid that. And then if you have had a disturbed night's sleep and you're tired the following day, it's recommended to try and take power naps of 5 to 10 minutes a few times a day, rather than taking a long afternoon nap. If you can, just do a little power nap, 5-10 minutes, wake back up, try and get on with your day, do another little power nap. Again, you can find on YouTube and places like that, 5-10 minute power naps to help you during the day. They're like guided power naps. So we come to the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, then please do send an email to fitforlife@stchristopher's.org.uk. And my name's Sarah Guyan. I'm the complementary therapy lead. And thank you.